Got a good day coming, and it's all I need. Everything I wanted is in front of me.
Welcome to Who Hates Dave podcast. We are running through all the submissions that we have seen on whohatesdave.com. It's been a pretty polarizing week. Dave, can you tell us how this idea came to be and what the thought was?
Well, I think a month or so ago, the team came together and said, we need to address the issues that are before us, some of the problems, some of the attacks against me over the last few years. And what's a great format? Well, it made sense when it was proposed to me. Let's create a website, Who Hates Dave, and then we'll sit and answer the questions. It's pretty straightforward.
What are some of the things you've heard since launching surrounding this idea?
Are you nuts? Oh, no. The things I've heard is, are you nuts? I did hear that. Other politicians are going, that doesn't make sense. You're only supposed to listen to positive things about you. But at the end of the day, in the interest of transparency, I think we need to air out everything in public.
I think that's a great stance. So we're going to get into it. The layout on the site was you submit your first name. We've noticed there's some interesting ones. And if there's anything inappropriate, we'll address it as best we can. I can't read everything, but I'll do my best. So let's get into it. This submission's from Jason. I heard your job running the airport was essentially a golden parachute, and you had almost no responsibility, but you still managed to severely mess things up, and ultimately you were pushed out of that job. Is that true?
Well, normally associated with a golden parachute, there's money, like a big bunch of it. There wasn't any of that. That was a state employee's job. Yes, I was the director of the airport, Ted Stevens International. We had about 485 people that reported to me directly or indirectly. I think we ran a very good operation out there. But the other thing is it was running very well when I got there as well. And I like to think it was running a little bit better when I left. The important thing to remember here is that as a state employee, I'm not allowed to run for office. I have to resign that job before I can even announce I can run for office. I'm interested in running for office. So that's the sequence of it, of why I got into this race and why I had to resign that job.
Thanks for your submission, Jason. And just to preface everybody, this is a real way to connect with Dave. If you have questions that are genuine and you want to ask those questions, Dave will see them and will address them. So please jump on whohatesdave.com and give us some intel.
Plug.
And I'm Dave.
Next submission, John. Would you consider completely negating property taxes for disabled veterans?
Yes, I would. But let's look at more of a jurisdictional issue here. Property taxes pretty much are the purview of municipalities. So the governor coming in and saying he is for property tax abatement completely for anyone, that's a difficult to accomplish. But I'd certainly be very interested in exploring that.
Interesting. Next statement from Richard. He starts out by saying, fish. Our senators take funding from campaigning from Trident. Are you? I certainly hope you understand that you cannot put pro-trawler folks on the MPFMC board, right? You get to put 6 out of the 11, the majority. Do you agree with trawling quotas need to be drastically decreased and even eliminated? The Yukon and Kuskokwim natives are dependent upon transparent, fish-loving governors. No BS. Thanks and good luck.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, overall, let's look at the big thing, the morality of this. I believe both bycatch and...
Well, let's back up, Dave. Are you taking campaign money from Trident?
I am not. And we're not taking it from Trident family members, business partners, or anyone else.
All right. Address the NPFMC board nominations.
Yeah, nominations, not appointment. People think the governor appoints 6 of the 11. That's not true. The governor nominates 3 for each position when they come up on a 3-year revolving basis. Normally, and so the person who actually appoints is the Secretary of Commerce federally. And that person normally takes the first recommendation of the governor of the state of Alaska. That being said, I think it's important right now of the 6 members, I think 5 or 6 are all highly sympathetic to trawlers. And that's got to change. Sport fishing, I'm just here to tell you, brings in a lot more money to the state of Alaska, the tune of $1.4 billion to the state of Alaska from sport fishing. And
Billion with a B?
Yeah.
Wow.
A lot of money. So, and if you want to look at it financially, the other issue, I think more importantly, is the moral issue. Bycatch and trawling is a moral issue. We don't waste that which God gave us, especially fish and crab and halibut, some of the most valuable species that we try to consume in this state. And then trawling in and of itself is immoral. We drag great big chains along the bottom of the ocean. If someone ever did that to our forests, let's just say someone come in and we don't do it anymore. We come in and we in an unlimited sense, we don't cut down every last tree, bush, and bulldoze our forests. So why would we allow this for our oceans? It makes no sense to me.
Jeremy Meter writes, first of all, I would like to thank you for leading Anchorage in the right direction. My complaint, however, too many liberals that fought your great policies and ideas. I would like to volunteer in any way I can. I'm not going to read their phone number that they left for help. I am a pissed off voter that needs leadership for our state. I believe the way you ran Anchorage will set the stage of what you can do for our state.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Nice comment, Jeremy.
Yeah, appreciate that. I was waiting for the question.
Anita Bear writes, hello, Dave. Thanks for taking my questions. Has Amy Demboski always been crazy, or did she go crazy under your watch? If she was always crazy, why did you hire her? Tough question.
Well, I don't knowingly hire crazy people. That's a personnel issue, I think. She was a former employee, and I think I'll just leave it at that. I stand by my decisions during that difficult period of time. There was a lawsuit. The lawsuit is readily available in the public. Any reporter can stand up, write an expose on that, and I would definitely support that notion.
She goes on to write, will you take testosterone and or get hair plugs?
Well, are you paying for them? I'm 67 years old. It is what it is. Take it or leave it, I guess.
We all just want to know what your strategies are for taking on state Democrats' final bosses. Thank you, AB.
AB, state what bosses? Final bosses?
I think the final boss is like a gamer
Yeah,
term.
it's
Like once you hit all the levels of a video game, you get to like
I-
the final boss, like
I would
Mortal Kombat.
I would assume
I think.
reference to Begich.
Oh, Tom
Tom
Begich.
Begich.
Former Senator Tom Begich. Well, my job is to beat him in November, and that's what I intend to do. Everything we're doing, including this, is focused on one thing: make sure a Democrat doesn't get this seat.
This one's lovely. First name, No. Just go away, dude. Nobody wants you back.
Sounds like my wife. No. No. I appreciate. No. Yes, I appreciate your opinion there. I don't agree with it. I'm doing this because I think I've got something to offer this state as governor, and I think I have the experience to do that. But I appreciate your comment.
Kind of a slightly redundant one here. This is from a Trina, I believe. When you resigned from your position at the airport, I believe you stated that you wanted to spend more time with family and enjoy retirement. Rumors were that you had ambition for running for governor. Is there a reason why you admitted that wasn't admitted at the time leaving the airport?
Well, this is the thing. It's a natural evolution for the mayor of Anchorage, and it's happened several times before, to consider running for governor for the state of Alaska because they're the two most similar jobs in the state. About 40% of the state is in Anchorage, so that makes sense. At the end of the day, though, you can't announce that you're running for a public office when you're a state employee. So you have to be completely clear of that job before you can even announce that you're running for a state position. And that was that sequence. Do I want to spend more time with my family and fishing and hunting and flying and boating? Well, yeah, I do. That doesn't preclude running for governor.
Sandy V writes, "Wow, you're brave. Just hope the comments stay appropriate," which we have seen. I would say the vast majority have been wildly appropriate and are on both sides of the aisle asking real questions. There are a few we obviously cannot read that were fun to read on the back end.
Sandy seems sweet.
She does. Eric Anderson. Hello, Dave. Do you plan to keep Alaska Alaskan or our foreign interests in your back pocket? NSTAR is Canadian. Pogo Mine is foreign. Fort Knox is foreign. Donlin is foreign. Kensington is foreign. Ambler is foreign. The new LNG pipeline project deal is foreign. While Alaskans struggle to pay the bills and keep the cost of living down, what do you have to offer to keep Alaska for we the people and quit the big sell-off? Thank you, sir.
Yeah, real good question. A very fundamental question, actually. It sure seems, I've been up here 35 years. It sure seems to me, I get this feeling, maybe even more over time, is that it sure feels like we're a colony of someone else, whether it's the Lesser 48 or it's foreign interests. It seems people want to come up and take our fish through trawling. They want to come up and take our minerals and our resources, our natural gas, oil, maybe a little bit. But at the end of the day, we have to develop, even as we work towards more Alaska ownership, maybe through our 8As. I don't know. But we've got to work. We can't stop development in any way as we wait for something. We got to do both at the same time. And so work for more Alaskan ownership, even as we mine and capture our minerals, capture the wealth, what we can from that. Certainly our oil and gas, the oil pipeline TAPS has treated us very well for many, many decades. And we certainly hope the gas line will do something similar.
Joel writes, I'm looking forward to reading Chris Constant's notes on here. Hang on, Dave. It could be a bumpy ride. Love ya.
Yeah, politics is always a bumpy ride. I had 3 years of bumpy rides at the city.
Bradley Volstad writes, hey, my friend, I personally find that you did a great job standing up for the corruption of the assembly during your time as mayor. I'm super thankful to have had you representing all of Anchorage during that time. God bless you and your family. Thanks again.
If that's the Brad that I think it is, Brad's a great guy.
Cooper writes, why does Alaska pursue so many industries that aren't strong long-term endeavors? We promote tourism like it's our only option when Alaska needs better paying and more sustainable industries like manufacturing. Sure, shipping is a challenge, but each and every Alaskan faces it and overcomes those obstacles. Put more money in our pockets with better jobs and stop promoting seasonal work. Most of those wages go to people who don't even live here. We're hemorrhaging money because of it.
Well, actually, I think once again we can do both. We can advance. Tourism pays a lot of our bills in this state. It employs a lot of people and certainly promotes this state for more tourism. We do have to develop our resources. I've commented on that at length. But we don't need to be an either-or community. We can certainly be a yes and yes. Like I had a theme at the city. You know, when someone proposed something new, I says, as a department head, your job is to get to yes. And the only sure stop on a project was if it was a legal issue. But when it comes to resource development or tourism or anything like that, get to yes. And that means on everything.
Gentleman named Pete writes, what really happened with Amy Demboski? Why did you try and pay her more than $500,000? Do you believe a mayor or governor should be able to hire and fire whoever they want? Let's start with the first part of that question. Why did you try and pay her more than $500,000, Dave?
Well, I guess his facts are wrong. I didn't. She was paid after I left office. Had I been in office, been reelected, and I wouldn't have paid, I would have taken that issue to court. I think I would have won easily, and my lawyers told me I would have won easily. But that was a decision for the subsequent mayor and the assembly. So what was the other half of that
So
question?
you never personally paid her.
I did not. I fought I fought to keep from paying.
Do you believe a mayor or governor should be able to hire and fire whoever they want?
At a certain level of government, yeah, they do. The people that work directly for the governor, especially the commissioners and the close-in staff, folks like comms directors, policy directors, those kind of people, chief of staff, certainly the governor has to have that executive authority. When it gets down into the labor groups and others like that, you don't want a change of politicians to come in and have that authority, I don't think, to fire rank and file workers and maybe satisfy some kind of vendetta. I don't like that. I've worked in government from both the top end and from middle management, both in the military, the Alaska Air National Guard, the city. That's just something I've kind of come to the conclusion that some of those protections that are in there are very good protections. But then again, you got to balance that with the executive authority and the ability to lead the entity, the city or the state. And that governor, he or she needs that latitude.
Thanks for the comment, Pete. Hopefully that answered your question. This one's from William. Can you tell us more about firing your former city manager? We only heard filtered replies from your city to the media.
Well, that again, I'm going to pivot a bit. That's a personnel issue. I'm not here to attack someone who doesn't have the same forum to counter it. But I will say this is what I just said on the earlier question, which was
well, I'll stop you for a second.
Yeah.
He goes on to write, why not just tell us your side of the story of what happened? If you want to earn my trust, let's hear it straight and tell me about what really went down.
Well, some of it is made, very much of it is made public, has been made public. At the end of the day, there were certain standards of behavior and decorum, and that I expect everyone to adhere to. Some people don't do that, and when they didn't, they were gone. There was a few examples of that, and I expect the best behavior. You got to get along with people. You got to lead people well. You can't tear down the team. And you simply have to perform at a very high level, and I demanded that, and some people just were incapable of that.
I think another thing just to add on to that is like the municipal law department is there to protect the city and the government structure. It's not there to protect the executive branch or the legislative branch. It's there to protect like the product, which is the government. And so when you have a law department coming out and saying, no, you can't say this publicly, no, you can't say this publicly, you end up getting pigeonholed to sticking to a narrative. Had we come out and told the full side of the story, I think that there would have been a lot more information and there wouldn't have been a payout following that. But to go back and rehash it, you're going to have to jump through some legal hurdles. But the story that was published was not the story that actually happened. And had Dave got elected, I think you would have seen it played out in the courtroom and there wouldn't have been a payout for that, in my humble opinion. I got to see all the fun stuff during the administration and kind of just see how the media like really twists and turns a lot of stories. I mean, I was there when a certain someone resigned and then 4 days later claimed that she was illegally fired. So
next comment comes afraid of retribution. Some of the names we've got were pretty interesting and awesome. They write, your biggest mistake was ever aligning yourself with Save Anchorage. They're a bunch of bitter malcontents who hate everything that is not far, far right.
Well, afraid of retribution. I'm going to disagree with you on that. Save Anchorage was a group that was formed during the COVID shutdowns in 20 and it grew in 21, 22. We were having, quite frankly, previous mayors in an assembly shutting down businesses. I think we lost roughly 200 small businesses in the city because the onerous, illogical, irrational restrictions placed on them in their specifically small restaurants in particular. And these were people, and I knew some of them personally. They were restaurant owners. They were hotel owners, and they said, these restrictions are going to put me out of business. I've mortgaged my house to buy this business, and then you come in and for no scientific reason whatsoever, other than some guy by the name of Fauci said to do something, you come in and you shut down my business. They have a right to be mad and angry. You want to call them irrational? I think under the circumstances, they were entirely rational, and it was a good group of Alaskans, good group of Americans. Are there extremists in there? Maybe, but I thought that was a good group.
I think people have a right to organize. I think people have a right to protest, and there was no violence in the Save Anchorage. It was just people who clearly disagree ideologically with the commenter, but I think they're a good group, and they organized well, and they fought for what they believed in, which was not having COVID shutdowns.
Yep.
Kate writes, anyone who is willing to share a stage with Trump after January 6th is a traitor to the United States and should never be allowed anywhere near public office. This includes you.
Well, Kate, I think now that the truth is finally coming out, Trump's winning lawsuits based on inaccurate reporting of what he said and did on January 6th, and now he's just entered into a $10 billion lawsuit. Looks like he's going to win with BBC, and they have conceded publicly that they lied to the public on this. So they and I'm not going to get into the details of what he said, but they conjoined segments of a video that were separated by about 45 minutes, as I recall. And they, again, with video, with editing and video, you can make someone say anything you want them to say. So was there misbehavior? Certainly on January 6th, certainly there was, but I've actually watched the videos where we had guards. And my nephew was one of them, by the way, because he worked for the park police then, and welcomed them in, and they were very well behaved. Others were not well behaved, and quite frankly, they should have been prosecuted. But at the end of the day, they had people that did literally nothing wrong, were prosecuted, and their lives were ruined by the federal government because of the lawfare of the Biden administration. That was a tragedy, and I think Trump is trying to rectify that with his pardons.
They went on to ask a few other questions that I don't feel are very pertinent to the governor race. She followed up with, can't do anything but follow the leader because you have no spine.
I've never been accused of having a lack of spine or a lack of courage. I think I proved it every other Tuesday night for 3 years on the assembly. I had the assembly standing up and to include the current mayor, stand up and say, Bronson, you need to resign right now in an assembly meeting. So if you want to talk about, let's juxtapose that with Save Anchorage. These are government officials who are ridiculing another government officials, but then they would also berate to the point of tears municipal employees and never apologize. And I'm just telling you, I saw that multiple times, abusing municipal, mid-level, and low-level municipal employees on a Tuesday night on the assembly. And if I didn't stand up for those people enough at the time, maybe that's my mistake. It certainly is, if that's what you're calling a lack of courage. But as a 24-year military guy, I've never been accused of lack of courage.
Henry writes, how are you going to fix local emergency planning committees, LEPCs?
Well, until I get into office and find out which or how many of the 21 LEPCs are having problems, I can't answer that question. I do know that in the course along hurricane trauma that we went through here a month and a half ago is an indication that we certainly need to be up to snuff on those kinds of things. We need to be prepared and in all of government, take a whole of government approach to solving these problems, just like Governor Dunleavy did. So if there's a problem in one or more of those LEPCs, certainly let me know. And if or when Governor, I'll take care of it.
Mike Wers writes, in your honest opinion, do you have any reason to believe the homeless situation remains so unresolved because certain people profit on it in some way or another? Or is it just a blatant ineptitude through city, council, and other leadership? Thank you for your time.
It is not solved. It's worse than when I left. We were on a path to success. And of course, the assembly stopped that, and now we're dealing with it. Just yesterday, they agreed to make our buses in the city warming shelters. So now they give free passes in cold weather to homeless folks in our city and say you can ride around the buses and stay warm. I proposed a large, what we called a navigation center, through a competitive process, and they shot that down after the concrete was starting to pour. So to me, that seemed quite irrational, harmful. But in the words of Kevin Cross from the dais on a Tuesday night, when he looked at the rest of his assembly member partners, he says, in effect, I wouldn't trust you people to build a doghouse. So well done, Kevin Cross.
I think there's just so many like layers of homelessness. It's citywide. There are people making money off homelessness.
Yes,
We
there
know
are.
that. There's businessmen that have all of a sudden found it within their heart to create nonprofits to make money off the problem. And then you have a city council that believes in paying immense amount of money for failed products or failed methods that we know are failed. They're failed universally nationwide, but it's an ideology, and that's what they want to fund. And as a legislative branch, they're allowed to do that. But I would say it's multi-layered. So it's funding coming from a city to pay for failed programs that are run by people trying to make money off of it.
And in the situation, the city of Anchorage is, and granted, I'm running for state of all, for governor for the entire state, but a lot of the homeless issue, many cities and villages send their people here. So in the interest in for the good of the state, the homeless issue in Anchorage as the nucleus of homelessness has to be dealt with effectively, very effectively, and it's not going to happen under the current worldview in government. And some people call it housing first. That's a failed ideology. Even jurisdictions in California are rejecting housing first. It's got to be treatment first. And because the essence of this problem is psychiatric and drug problems and alcohol problems universally.
Commercial pilot rights. Dave, you give pilots a bad name.
Well,
Just commercial pilots, or are we talking about private pilots
Just
as well?
pilots. You give them a bad name, Dave.
well, I'd like to know, does he expand on that? I assume
No.
it's a he.
No, that's it.
Well,
It's pilots named Dave only.
Well, I'll just tell you, after 24 years of being a military officer and pilot and maintenance officer, which I was real proud of, by the way, and 30 years as a commercial airline pilot and captain, wide-body captain, no one thought whatsoever that I gave you all a bad name. So I think Northwest Airlines, Delta Airlines, the United States Air Force thought differently. So I think I'll side with them.
Okay. Teresa, why do you think so many people started out willing to work in your administration as mayor, but left before your term was completed? I'm sure the answer might be complex or multifaceted, but the apparent revolving door during your term as mayor was a bit alarming. As governor, you'll need to bring on a strong team to do the job effectively.
The media doesn't cover the current administration's coming and goings, which is part of the point. Dave had like a mid-level employee that would leave and they'd be like, oh my gosh, this girl's leaving. And it's like, well, she was having a baby. We knew for 9 months that she was leaving. She wants to be a stay-at-home mom to her 2 kids, but they would make it this like media blitz. But there were people that just didn't want to work for Dave. Different side of the aisle.
I don't apologize. I think the phrase is compassionate conservative, but I'm a conservative, and there was people that simply couldn't work for me. They wouldn't work for me and couldn't work for me, so they'd go away. So I had to rebuild an administration almost from scratch. A lot of the professionals stayed. Great people down at 4700 building. They stayed. That was held. Parks and Rec stayed. Health department had some change over there. There were some challenges there, but it took a while to build a team. Every administration is the same way. So
I want to dovetail James's comment that follows it right up. You're quite likely one of the most incompetent, entitled, drama-filled conservative idiots in Anchorage. How you survive so long in Alaska without freezing to death or getting eaten by a wildlife anytime you step outside is a mystery to most Alaskans who have done their time here. Alaskans don't care about how they do it outside. I assume that means lower 48. You pursued every shitty policy and idea pushed by the outside right-wing grievance and drama machine like the thoughtless moron you are. Please move to Texas or some other conservative hellhole. Alaskans don't have time for your ignorant, grifting bullshit, Dave.
Bradley sounds.
James, that's James.
Oh, James. Well said.
He's like the wild ant at Thanksgiving that's just like on this rant, you know, and you're just like, thanks, Aunt Edna.
I personally thought it was pretty poetic.
Yeah, it was well written. I
thought so too. I agree with that completely.
Truthful. Let's go in reverse order. Speak about the hellholes. I think if we want to look at L.A., San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, all stridently left places of great virtue and prosperity, or not. I tell you, if you think Texas is wrong, why are all the Californians moving to Texas? So at the end of the day, I am a man of the right. I am a conservative, and I push conservative ideals. That's what I was elected to do. That's what I hope I am going to be elected to do, because that's the right way. We need to get back to normalcy in this country, certainly in this state. We need to address real problems based on facts and data, not these feel-good things. We got to get rid of things like DEI and ESG and XYZ or whatever the heck they are. And we got to make decisions on energy based on what costs the least cost of energy, not on some windmill or solar panel notion. There's a lot of things to fix, and quite frankly, I think history and this lower 48 thing you bring up. Quite frankly, the conservative way of solving these problems is the best way, because it's the traditional way that we've always solved them.
Ellen writes, could you please itemize the legal payouts incurred by your administration? Once they are totaled, can you please go through each of them and share how you would prevent similar incidents in the future in your proposed state government?
We only had 4 during the whole time we were in office. One was right at the beginning.
Yeah, the equity officer.
Yeah. So the chief equity officer, just to dive into some weird stuff, the chief equity officer was part of the executive branch, but the way that the assembly funded the position, because it was a new municipal position, was that he would roll up to both the legislative and the executive branch. He could not be fired without approval of the assembly. So what happened was we challenged that. We came in, we fired him because, quite frankly, he wasn't at work ever. And the assembly said, no, you can't do that, ended up paying him out for wrongful termination. And then the law, we took it to court, and court actually ruled in Bronson's favor. So we paid out when we shouldn't have. That was like $100K, I think, was his salary.
And remember, when we pay out, that's an assembly decision, because they're the appropriating body.
Another thing that people don't know is when we pay out, it's not an admission of guilt. They'll actually pay out because they don't want to waste municipal resources and cost and finances fighting a fight. And that happened when the real estate director got let go. She claimed whistleblower status. She ended up making $18,000. They paid her $18,000 to basically leave. There was a mid-level employee that got terminated. And because of the CBA protections, they paid her to go away. It was no admission of guilt on either side. That was like $4,000 or $40,000, excuse me. And then there was a wrongful termination with the EOE director, the equal opportunity director. And they ended up paying her out as well. That was the biggest price tag at $240K. And then, the municipal manager lawsuit should have never gone to payout. But once Dave left office and the new administration came in, they paid her out, which the mayor would have never done.
Good clarification. Mama B writes, Dave, you're a nut job. Aw, that's sweet.
You must be nuts.
Yeah.
Kathy, you could not run Anchorage. Experience to run a state? No. It was a bad 4 years as mayor. A few highlights that hopefully are some things that deter you from continuing your run for governor. You promote Christian values. You are anti-abortion. You are anti-LGBTQ+. It's a big no for me.
LGBTQ2IAS+.
Snowplowing nightmare, Joe Gerace, Weka Medical, never working or compromising with the assembly voted in by their constituents. That won't work as governor. Judy Ellich, one of many appointed and absolutely not qualified. Hitler wasn't so bad. So much more. Limited space because you don't really want to know how terrible you were or are. No. I don't remember the limit on the website for characters, but this is quite the
600.
response.
It was 600.
But she ran out of room, so we can circle back with Kathy.
And who's the person again on this after the
we-
shopping list?
We only
Kathy.
asked it for first name, asked for first names because we
right.
wanted
No,
to
I
just,
don't want the last name.
She could have made multiple submissions. Kathy, you can submit multiple times over
Yes,
and over and
please
over
do.
again.
correct. There was
So
multiple people that
Are
did
we going to
that.
address these issues here?
Briefly,
Just go one by one, real
Christian values. You
Yes.
promote Christian values, Dave. How dare you?
Traditional American values, yes, I do promote those. Yes.
Um,
Am I against
Jesus.
abortion? Yes, I'm against abortion. LGBTQ, I'm a live and let live kind of person. However, the transing of minors, if you want to trans and you're above 18, that's your business, not my business. Don't want to know anything about it, just as long as the government doesn't have to pay for it. But the transing of kids.
Joe Gerace.
Oh, yeah. Well, Joe was hired by the municipal manager. I approved it. I'm not going to run away from that. He fooled us, and he fooled the state. The state sued him for fooling them. He fooled us. When we found out what was happening, we terminated him, and we moved along.
Isn't there a process when wasn't he around prior to?
Yeah, he was hired by the previous administration as a contractor, and then we brought him into similar work at the health department as a PCN, as a permanent employee.
Mm-hmm. And then what happens is because he was a director, he's appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the assembly. So he fooled the previous administration, he fooled our administration, he fooled the legislative branch, and he fooled the state. It was a whole legacy of stolen valor, fake credentials, fake degrees.
That everyone was guilty of, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Pulled the wool over. Weka Medical. I'm not familiar with that one.
I am. So WECA is I don't know what WECA stands for. All I know is, so in early on in our administration, very early on, there was a treatment for COVID, was called monoclonal antibody treatment. And someone told me, says, hey, I got this treatment and I instantaneously felt better. I was diagnosed with COVID and I was getting really sick. So I says, well, hey, let's go take a look at that. So I go to Midtown in an old warehouse, and they've got hospital beds. WECA does, because this security company, they do a lot of great things. And Todd Herring is the owner, great guy, Todd and Crystal. And I says, this is great treatment. In fact, and I think I got the treatment later on, and it did make you feel a lot better, almost instantaneously. And I says, well, why are you in here? And he says, because we can't find any buildings. And I says, so I went back to staff and we said, how can we fix that? Well, we had a building. It was on 36. It was the Golden Lion Hotel, which subsequently became another challenge. And I went to my staff and I says, let's set them up in there. Mm-hmm. And so we set them up in there. We treated, I think, about 4,000 people. And I got the treatment. And it was very positive. Since then, we've learned that monoclonal antibody treatment for the earlier forms of the COVID virus was very helpful. And we estimate, WECA estimates, we saved about 2,000 lives out of the 4,000 treatments. I think those are very rough numbers.
It was controversial because he allowed them into a municipally owned building at no cost, but it was life-saving. I mean,
it was.
Why would we charge someone to save people's lives?
Yeah, at the end of the day, the executive, the governor, or the mayor has executive authority in an emergency. I executed on that authority, and I do the exact same thing today. If we could save a few lives there or any lives, it was worth it. We saved a lot of lives. And
Kathy asks about Judy Elledge.
Mm-hmm. What's the question?
Judy Elledge, one of many appointed and absolutely not qualified.
Not qualified to be a librarian, I think, is the question. Okay, so Judy Elledge, 40 plus years as a professional educator. And I've always thought, because my kids grew up in the Luzak Library. Our kids were homeschooled, so our kids literally lived in that library. That was before the great homeless challenge that began in 2015 under a previous administration, where they thought they would do homeless drug addiction and other treatment in a public library. So you can take that for what it's worth. Judy Elledge was very qualified to be a librarian. She was a good program manager. She knew how to manage programs very well, but she was a conservative, and the staff were quite liberal. And they would have, and I knew this, they would have secret meetings without her in there to undercut her. So at the end of the day, it was a conflict of ideology.
Doug writes, your mishandling of the COVID-19 pandemic killed my friend. Sorry to hear that, Doug. I'm mad at you. Your incompetence has dire, direct consequences. I will do everything in my power to limit your ability to kill more people.
Well, first, Doug, I'm sorry about your friend dying. To the cause of that, I don't know how I mishandled it. I came in early on, so I retired from an airline job because of COVID. They gave me a buyout, so I took it from the airline. And so I started immediately getting into research because they were shutting down the city. There was nothing else to do. And I came to the conclusion that something was not right. I couldn't put my finger on it exactly, but immediately I found that the federal government, there was something broken there. But I started listening to other voices, primarily Jay Bhattacharya. And now I think Jay had the right voice. And so my handling of it was we don't need to shut down. Kids don't need vaccines. Kids don't need to stay away from schools. Because it did not impact any kids in this country. And it was problematic for the elderly. So my thing was a very libertarian approach, which was if you want a vaccine, go down to my health department, I'll give you a free vaccine. If you don't want a vaccine, I'm not going to make you give a vaccine. We knew on the outset that the masks weren't going to stop anything. That was a ploy to get people to comply with all the other things. Because on the back of the box, early on, it says this mask does not stop the spread of an airborne virus. Okay, so we were warned. I've subsequently talked to many nurses, and they said we know none of this was going to work. So if I did something in there, I don't know what I would have done, but I was not going to make municipal employees get vaccines. I just wasn't going to do it because the vaccine was problematic. The excess deaths that occurred across the world did not happen until after the vaccine came online.
Again, sorry, Doug, about your friend.
Yes, very much so.
Tina writes, I remember when my 4-wheel drive car got stuck in the snow because other cars had gotten stuck because no plowing was done in the neighborhood near Wisconsin, or pretty much anywhere else, as far as I could tell. Good times. Thank you, Dave. she goes on to write, and we'll address.
Oh, there was more.
Oh, yes.
And there's more.
We'll go on to address both. But she goes, I was just pouring some water into my tea kettle this morning, and I thought, dang, he's the guy who took the fluoride out of the water. And then all of a sudden I hear you're running for governor. I think you're probably running for governor just so you can get money because you know you won't win.
How do you get money as a governor? They make public service salaries.
Yeah. If you know what the governor made, you're not making a lot of money.
Well, and APOC lets everyone know what kind of money comes in
secrets.
And where it goes, and there's absolutely no secrets. We all know that.
So where's the question in here?
Well, we got a handful of comments, but the fluoride one's interesting. So briefly, Dave, tell us about the fluoride incident.
Okay, fluoride first, then the snow. So when you're new to this job or these kind of jobs, executive job of any kind, government or military, whatever, you got to start touring all your departments and meeting as many people. You got to find out what's going on. So one of those tours was at Clutna, out to the water treatment plant. So me and two or three of our senior staff, we drive out and we start this tour. We're standing in the lobby of the water treatment, little lobby there. And one of the senior staff there came and says, "Hey, Mayor, we've got a request from you." And I says, "Yeah, what is it?" And they says, "Well, we'd like to, for various reasons, we'd like to discontinue putting fluoride in the water." And at the time, I didn't have a big opinion on fluoride. And I says, "Okay, why?" And they says, "Well, you got to put on the hazmat suit, you got to climb up this ladder, and with this big 40 or 50 pound bag of powder, and you got to mix it into a vat, you got to stir it up, and then it mixes in all the water." And I go, "Okay, well, show me the vat." They showed me the vat and the ladder and the hazmat suit, and I go, "Okay." So, and there was other questions, and then I says, "Is this legal?" And I didn't know the very recent history, and I says, "Is this legal?" And they says, "This complies with both state and federal law." And I go, "Okay." And then we had some more conversations, and again, this was moments in office. And then finally I says, "Okay, if this is legal, then we can do that." So somebody walked down the hallway, turned the valve, I'm told, and came back and says, "Turned off." We go, "Okay." And we come back, we get back to the office. And at the end of the day back then, we would have, at the end of the day in my office, we'd have 6 or 7 senior staff sit around and kind of do a after action for the whole day. It's kind of a military thing with me. And I mentioned, "Oh yeah, we were out there, and some folks, the very senior people out there asked us to turn off the fluoride." And the municipal manager says, "And what happened?" I says, "Well, I gave him permission to turn it off." And rightfully so, she got on the phone and excoriated that director and says, "Turn it back on." So it was off for 2.5 hours. And so there is no law against turning off the fluoride, because ironically, for 4 days, the next week, it was turned off.
All right. I think everybody wants to know about the snow removal debacle.
Right.
Bronson Gate, I would call the snow removal issue.
Yeah. What do you, let's take a.
What? I mean, I think everyone has an opinion. What is your stance on what happened?
Can we just first address that the 2 greatest record snowfalls
Well,
aside from 1970 happened during Dave's administration? Like, let's just first bring that out.
So let's look at this. So an average snowfall in the city is either 74 or 77 inches. I can't remember. So in those 2 winters, we had 2 winters of bad snow issues. And I think one was like 131 inches and one was 132 inches roughly. So nearly twice the average. And they were the second and third largest snowfalls in the history of the municipality. That second winter, it was particularly bad because we went from dry, fairly warm roads to above hillside, about 49 inches of snow, and then people drove on it. And so it stuck, and it became like cement attached to the asphalt. So it was a big problem. But let's go back even further to previous administration. Remember the argument that we had where it said you can have police or you can have snow plowing, but you can't have both. That was literally, yes, the mayor literally verbalized that. So what they did is they stopped and buying equipment. So because this is what you got to remember, we have 31 graders in the city, and the grader is the most important piece of equipment in all this. There was times in those 2 bad snowfalls, there was one night I remember we were down to 19 pieces of equipment because of maintenance, because they were old, because we stopped buying them years before. So then that sets the stage for what we went through in two different winters. And then the other issue is the big roads. I'm getting calls from friends, good friends, and just hollering at me, "Doggone it, Huffman is bad, and O'Malley is bad, and Abbott's bad, and Diamond's bad, and all this other stuff." And I go, "Why are you calling me? Those are state roads. I'm not allowed, when our plows have to cross a state road, they're required to lift their blades. We are not allowed to plow." So what I did was getting so bad, and my fire chief and his ambulances, they were worried. Couldn't get up there. The police chief's calling, "We can't get up the hillside." So I called the governor. And I says, hey, and he was happened to be driving home himself out to the valley. And I says, hey, I need your permission to plow some of your roads in the city, the big roads. And he said, Dave, I don't plow streets. He says, call the chief. So I called the chief, who's a friend of mine. And I says, hey, I need to plow. And he says, Dave, call Ryan Anderson, secretary or commissioner of transportation. And I said, Ryan, I need to plow. And he says, Dave, do whatever you got to do. Just send me a bill. So we pulled, and I don't remember the hours and number, but we pulled a lot, and we plowed the major roads and with the special blade, the tooth serrated blade that you need to lift the ice off the asphalt. And that was Diamond. That was all the big roads. There was some out on West Side as well, and I don't remember. So my comms director came in after that, and I says, we have a problem. The public doesn't understand which roads are state and which ones are city, because they're calling me for state roads. So my comms director came in, created a website, which created an interactive, essentially, map, and you could click on a road and say, who owns it? I think the colors were red and green, if I remember. Like red is state and green is municipal or something like that. And then you could find out which road was, and that kind of, because we got a lot of phone calls, and I mean thousands. And a lot of it was for the roads that we are not responsible for. So, I could have come out in public and, defended myself back then. Our job was to plow snow, not defend ourselves.
Dave, you did a crappy job at defending yourself. Let's just call it what it is.
Back then.
Yes.
Well, I think my
the
comms
website
director
was
did.
so good, by the way,
Yes.
because the new administration actually claimed that it was their new website,
Yeah,
even though
yeah.
it was built under the Bronson
Yeah,
administration. So
our comms team built
I
that
see you.
website, and now they're taking credit for it, and that's fine. I don't care. At the end of the day, so you had what you had is you had record snowfalls, and you had poor equipment, and then that we wound up ordering equipment, but they say, well, just order it and get it. Well, back then, a grader, so a Caterpillar 160 or Caterpillar 180, which is the two primary pieces of equipment.
he always gets so in the details of what
But
kind
it's,
of
I
equipment.
mean,
Details
it's
matter.
good. It's good.
So we were on a 2.5 to 3 year lag. So you order, because of COVID, you order and you're going to wait. So that we were the moment the snow fell, we were in a predicament. And so I think we pulled out the stops, and I'm just telling you, I spent a lot of evenings with the crews at shift change in our road maintenance department, buying food for them, buying pizza and sandwiches and stuff for them. And they were truly, if there's heroes in the city, it was them, because they would work that we had, I can't remember the number of days. It was like incredible with no break. So they were working 12 on, 12 off. And it's like some of them were going 2 or 3 weeks.
I just remember being like, can we please stop the snow? Like, I'm done with the snow.
But at the end of the day, you add up all those things, and that's what happens in absolutely record snowfall with heavy, wet snow.
And I don't think people realize that Anchorage is like truly a city on deferred maintenance. Like
Yes.
the assembly loves to vote for deferred maintenance because it saves money in the short term, but in the long term, you're absolutely screwed out. Who's next?
Sage writes,
Love Sage.
You once looked me directly in the eyes and told me that broken windows is the best true crime theory out there. That is rooted in racism, classism, and sexism. Then you spouted violent rhetoric about how we need to make sure males aren't being unfairly persecuted in domestic violence crimes. As someone with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, a DV and sexual assault survivor, you were incorrect in your assessments. That alone told me all I need to know about you. You don't care about survivors of domestic violence and need to work on overcoming your institutionalized racism, sexism, and classism.
Yeah. Well, first and foremost, as a DV survivor, sexual assault survivor, that's traumatic, and I'm really sorry for that. And so I think that colors obviously your vision of this problem. But at the end of the day, was a Commissioner Stratton, New York City. So I've got the book on broken windows theory, and it is simply the best way to conduct law enforcement. That is, so in New York City, it was broken windows. You always you paint over the graffiti, you repair the windows, and you enforce turnstile jumping. And when you do that, then when they enforce turnstile jumping, this is what they found out: the crime rate on the subways dropped dramatically under Giuliani, and so that's proven. So to sit there and say it's bad, I don't care what degree you have, it just doesn't matter. You're wrong. That is the best way, and that's the thing I support, and I would support it today. And guess what? We're not enforcing petty crimes and theft and robbery in our homeless community because they're homeless. And guess what? We have more and more petty crime, theft, and assaults in Anchorage because we're not enforcing these issues. If you're going to have laws, enforce them and penalize people for violating them.
No matter who they are.
No matter who they are.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care which color, which class, which economic strata you're from. Enforce all your laws equally.
Anchorage has a poverty defense, so we persecute laws. If someone doesn't have an assigned address, they actually get away with more crime than people who do have an assigned address.
That's an official policy.
A lot of people don't know that.
We've learned over the years that certainly women need to be protected, especially in DV cases. But we've seen examples where men are accused of something in, say, a custody issue over kids. It's not universal, certainly. But there's some of that, and maybe that's what I was commenting on. I don't know. I just think everyone needs to be treated equally under the law. And if you engage in violence, you should be punished severely.
Chris Kyle writes, great name.
Yes.
Corrupt judicial system, corrupt prosecutors, wasteful state spending. I have friends that work for the state who brag that they have to make work last all week. When I graduated from Diamond in the 80s, there was less than half the state employees there are now. It's time for a change. I voted for you as mayor. You are absolutely the only option.
Well, it's funny. Before I came over here for lunch, I had a meeting on the issue of our grand jury challenge that we're having in the state right now, and it's getting to be a big issue, especially on the peninsula. If that's what they're referring to, we've got some real challenges, and I haven't made a public decision on that because I haven't done my research yet. So, if there's other challenges, a corrupt judicial system. That's the only one that I think I'm aware of right now, is this growing challenge with the state Supreme Court and this grand jury issue.
Chris writes, I'm undecided in the governor race at the moment. Bernadette is polarizing, but I'm unsure what she says is attainable in the way she discusses it. What are your thoughts on Bernadette? If she is ahead of you in the polls in the election, will you drop out of the race to ensure a Republican has the best shot?
We've seen the polls.
Well, yeah, we've seen the polls. I should be the absolute last person to get out. We'll see what happens on August 18th on the primary. But to the issue, this challenge that Bernadette has put out there, that everybody who's not number one on the Republican side, everyone but that person, should get out. And I says, well, okay, because me and a few other of the candidates have talked about this. I'll only mention one. Edna and I have talked about it. So let's look at a scenario. So, and I'm a conservative, and my first and foremost goal is to make sure a conservative takes that seat, a conservative Republican. And let's just say the number one person is a Democrat, and the next three are
and this is ranked choice voting.
Ranked choice voting. So we have a jungle primary on August 18th. Let's say the next three are Republicans. Okay, I'm number 3 or 4, so I'm not the number one. So I'm going to get out. And number 5 is a Democrat. So you're going to let a Democrat in the race. What if number 1? What if you're number 2, and the number 1 person is a Republican, but a rhino of the highest order? That's a very real possibility. I don't need to mention the names. And you're fractionally behind that person. Like you're 0.5, you're half a point behind them. You're going to get out and guarantee that, quite frankly, a rhino is going to get the job. That's what you do. So and then Edna had another scenario, and a couple other candidates had scenarios. I'm not signing that. Why would I sign off on an agreement to get out before I know who's in the race? Because the filing deadline is June 1st. It's naive, and it's I'm not going to play the game.
If we just a brief answer on Bernadette, she said a lot of things. We don't need to go into all of them, but is there one that stands out to you about something that's pretty polarizing that she said, and how you feel about it?
Well,
PFD
I think I know
potentially.
I was going to say the PFD.
PFD. Well, there's this notion that I think the last one I'd heard of is in the first 90 days, I'll have a plan to get us to and execute a plan on getting to a full PFD, which is about $4,000, $3,900, and I'll get that. So, and that's called the statutory PFD, and you got to remember the word statutory. So, at the end of the day, let's communicate this. So, you take about 600,000 people get the full PFD. That's $4,000. How much money is that? That's $2.4 billion. That's a full statutory PFD. So if you add up all the W-2s in the state, every last employee, you add them all up, what is that every year? It's about $1.2 billion. You can cut every employee in the state, every last one, forever, and you're only halfway to a full PFD. The problem here is people don't understand the problem is so big, they think they can cut their way to a full PFD. I support the statutory PFD. I think it's the citizens' money. But at the end of the day, the money is not there. It doesn't exist, so you can't get there. So what you got to do is you got to grow revenue to get to it. And I have a plan I'll be putting out here in the next couple of weeks where I can prove probably in that range, 5 to 8 years, we will get to a sustainable full PFD, statutory 5% POMV PFD. It is possible. It's quite possible. But in the current realm where we have 6% return on the corpus of the permanent fund, or on the entire permanent fund, we're not going to get there. We've got to get above 6% return rate. So I don't know why she's saying that. It's up to her. I'm running my campaign. She's running hers. I don't know why she would say that because the math is quite simple. The math doesn't work, but the principle stands. I agree with her on the principle, but the math isn't going to work.
All right, Ander. Ander wrote a handful of things we've already discussed, so we're going to skip ahead.
What a great name, by the way.
He asks, what's with free fuel for supporters with no real accounting for how much when they got caught? And then when they got caught, they paid a cheaper price than I can even buy it for.
Free fuel.
Say the question again.
I believe he's talking about the contractor using municipal fuel.
Oh, I know what this is. It's for snow plowing. McKenna Brothers, they were contracted by the municipality and they were fueling up at our municipal station where we fuel municipal vehicles. They did pay for that gas at the same municipal rate that other muni departments pay for. So the muni wasn't negative in a sense, but they were paying at a muni cost because they were contracted by the muni and it was during snowfall.
Trying to cut video of assembly meetings.
Okay, so I assume that was a few years ago. We were in COVID, so that probably would have been we were dealing with COVID. That was probably in 2021. There was an issue. So the video at the assembly meetings is controlled by the fire department. And it just happens to be because they have a studio in the building that does videos for fire training and other things. And there's this accusation that the municipal attorney went in and says, turn off the video. Municipal attorney does a lot of things that the mayor doesn't know about. If that's the case, that's fine. I had no exposure to it, but I'm told that it happened. So if it did, fine. I don't know who has jurisdiction over the video. The fire department works for the municipal manager. But the assembly chambers are controlled by the assembly chair only during session. So,
Karen, do you support Donald Trump?
I support Donald Trump's policies. I support the big, beautiful bill. I support the $24 billion in Coast Guard improvements that are mostly coming to this state. I support the $1,700 tax credit, education tax credit in the big, beautiful bill. We're the only state that was mentioned by Donald Trump in both the big, beautiful bill and his State of the Union address. So if my job as governor is going to be to bring home every last dollar for the state of Alaska. If they want us to take a cut in the notion of austerity, I tell you what, let's start on the East Coast in the 13 colonies, and they can start to reduce their take of federal money. And in, I don't know, 20 or 30 years, when they get to Alaska and Hawaii, then we'll start taking our cuts. We're trying to build a state here, and we need federal money to do it, and I'll take every dollar of the feds that I can, plus a few more.
Tracy writes, I think you and the rest of the Republicans need to back out of the race and throw your support behind Bernadette. She will be the one to beat with RVC. I assume they mean ranked choice voting.
RCV, yeah.
Mm-hmm. It will be a defeat for the Republicans again. Your entry into the race almost feels like you were bought and paid for by the other side.
Well, I appreciate the thought and the sentiments, but I make decisions based on data, and the data is quite clear over 3 different polls from May to October. And I'm just telling you, I know there's some people making claims. I'm number 1 on the Republican side on all 3 polls. I have by far the highest name recognition across the state. So in every metric, I'm ahead. I'm not the one to get out of the race. And I could go through the list, but yeah, I'm not. I think your data is bad.
No Name wrote, I worked under Mayor Bronson and had a meeting with him and others on my team. I won't pretend to know him personally or how he conducts all of his business. However, behind closed doors with a small intimate meeting regarding how to address a big problem in the city of Anchorage, he was genuinely interested in our solutions and listened to what we had to say. He wanted to know what resources it would take and deferred to our expertise on the issue to lean against when implementing change. I appreciate his desire for improving the city, and he clearly cares for Anchorage.
That is so sweet. I'm sad they didn't name themselves.
I'm waiting for the attack. I thought this was a Who Hates Dave website.
Thanks, No Name.
Alice, you want a statewide job, but you couldn't handle Anchorage snow. Babe, we weren't snowed in. We were Bronsoned in.
She calls him Babe?
She calls him Babe. Winter
Condescending.
deserved better.
But I kind of like it.
Well, thanks, babe, for that comment.
Your neighbor writes, why did you hire repeated frauds to lead the city? Why did you bring on a staff that destroyed City Hall? To be clear, homelessness was never that big of an issue in Anchorage.
Excuse me?
Until your office did nothing to solve the issue. More people died in Anchorage from COVID during that time as mayor, not while Quinn Davis or Berkowitz were mayor. You should be held liable.
Well, COVID hit in March of 20 in a big way. Probably you could make the argument for February. And then it was the summer of 20 where it became very problematic.
She took over wearing a mask. So I know that's like a weird timeline to remember, but she took over wearing a mask. So
the comment of us destroying City Hall is what I wonder is when we came into office, and I come into the mayor's office, and you could tell no one had been there. In fact, we in the mayor's conference room, there's a little kitchen. It was so filthy in there, we actually came in and replaced the countertop. We just had someone come in and put it.
The fridge had rotting food in it.
Yeah,
the plants were
so
all
it's
dead.
like there was no one showing up for work. There was a few departments on the lower floors, and thank heavens the outward facing, tax collection office and others. People were still showing up, but we came into an abandoned office building essentially, and so the notion that we somehow destroyed it. Now maybe she's talking more figuratively that we destroyed something, but we opened a city. At the end of the day, this is what you got to remember. We came into office and the government had shut down the city. I remember driving around town and there was no restaurants open. The big box stores were open. but the rest, all the small businesses were shut down. I came in and I says, something's wrong here, and I opened up the city. That's what we did, and we did that right away.
I want to give everyone credit here. Carl Ayers writes, what specifically is your plan to combat trawling that is currently devastating Alaskan waters? We're going to address that in a future video, so just hang tight, Carl. Linda writes, love you.
Love you too,
that.
Linda.
Look forward to the positive change to bring Alaska as our next governor. Nick writes, absolutely love what you are doing. Ivan writes, what did you mean when you said that Adolf Hitler was not always a dictator? What good and great things did he do for Germany? Question mark.
Well, Ivan, you're, I think, maybe once again pulling a quote wrong. I was quoting someone else, and you know that. So you're wrong in your portrayal of the facts here, and I think you can do better.
All right, moving on. Denny.
Denny.
I think you did a good job as mayor. You may not have been as effective as you could have been since you had to fight the assembly nearly every step of the way. I was surprised when you ran again, putting yourself back into the nearly impossible position, but I appreciate you and the stances you took. I just hope that you get elected governor. We need more common sense in our government. Denny.
Well, Denny, I appreciate the comment. It was a tough 3 years, and we did run again because we thought we had more to offer. We had built a really good team, but at the end of the day, when the legislative body, the assembly, who controls every last dollar is spent in the city, when they're against you in a 9-3 majority against you, you just kind of take what you take. But I wasn't about to quit and let someone else have to fight that battle.
Dylan writes, Dave worked with you at the airport and voted for you as mayor. I commend the balls on you for both those experiences and this website. Pretty damn cool.
And
no
now,
comment.
who was
Dylan.
Okay.
He thinks you have great big balls, and he loves the website.
We have children here.
Balls of steel.
Aaron writes, hi, Mayor Bronson. I have the utmost respect for you. You definitely should still be mayor of Anchorage. Suzanne LaFrance is a danger to the public. My question is that if you are not the top Republican vote getter, will you drop out of the race as governor? I think we've addressed that.
Yeah, we've covered
with
that a few
ranked choice
times.
voting. Sarah writes, hey, can you see Russia from the backyard? Yeah, didn't think so.
I've seen Russia many times, but not from my backyard.
From the cockpit of an airplane.
Well, Dave, that is
From the cockpit of a B-52.
That is all the comments for this week.
Okay.
Hey guys, thanks for joining us this week on Who Hates Dave podcast. If you'd like to comment or give praise to our former mayor and future governor of Alaska, visit us at whohatesdave.com and leave your submission. We'll try and increase character size so you can go past 600 characters.
Anything, Dave?
Well, we're not here to garner praise. We're here to get honest questions and critiques. So, contrary to what Alexis said, we're not looking for praise. We're just looking for cold, hard questions so we can answer questions. So, but thanks much, and welcome to whohatesdave.com.
This is transparency in government.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
All right.
Got a good day coming.